should you go for a complete patent? Okay, now here the answer would be that, see, industrial design will only protect the top, bottom, and the side views of the product, and they will not protect the function at all. So let's, if at all
Excuse
you
me,
want
ma'am.
a complete
If it's possible,
protection
can you?
of the
If it's possible, can
structural
you?
components as well as, yeah,
Hello, ma'am. If it's possible, can you put the full screen mode on, please, for the presentation?
yeah, yeah, it is on. One second, just a moment.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, just a moment. My screen is frozen somehow. Just give me a second. I will fix it.
Hello, ma'am. I think you can continue with what as it was before.
Ma'am, your mic is on mute. Please unmute your mic. Ma'am, can you please unmute your mic? Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, ma'am.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I think there's some network problem. Am I audible now?
Yeah,
Yes,
you're
ma'am.
audible.
You're audible. You may continue with the session,
Yes.
ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Great. Yes. 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 So a design application basically protects the aesthetic look of of any product, okay, and not the functional aspects of it. Okay, so we've covered trademarks and design applications so far. So let's move on to what a copyright is. You must have heard this word copyright. um, the system is taking a little bit of time, so I'll keep talking in the meantime. So a copyright is generally something that protects any literary piece of work. So it could be a song, it could be a poetry, it could be a story. So anything of that sort is protected using a copyright. Now let's quickly move on to what a trade secret is. Okay, so now let's, having discussed about a trademark, a copyright, and a design application, a trade secret, as the name itself is telling, is something which is kept secret and is not disclosed to the public. So now history about patents, as to why the system of filing patents was started. The reason was so that the scientific knowledge or whatever developments or research work people do, it is not kept to themselves, but it is shared with the public. Now once a certain invention has been shared, then there is always a fear that people would copy it and use it, and the person who has spent years in developing that particular product will not be able to get the benefit of that. So now, to have a balance between these two things, that is disclosing invention for the benefit of humanity, and as well as to give some benefit to the person who has worked a lot and developed the invention, this system of patenting was started, wherein a period of 20 years of monopoly is given to the applicant or the person who files a patent. And in the bargain, after 20 years, the patent is off the protection, and the general public is free to copy and use it. So that's what patent is for. Now, in what case would you file a trade secret, or would you keep a trade secret? So let's suppose a certain inventor, he feels that it is difficult to stop others from copying their invention. And secondly, if they feel that my invention is not as unique as it should be to grant me a patent, and if at all I file a patent, it may go to the general public and they may use it. So what I'm trying to say is, if it is partially new but it doesn't fulfill all the criteria of patentability, in such cases people may think of keeping a trade secret. Now a trade secret is a very risky option also, because the people within the organization might know the details of the particular product or the process developed, and when they change organizations they may carry the secret with them. Now, what is done in a trade secret is basically it's a legal document again, wherein people would sign that they will not disclose a certain product or a process, and signatures are taken, and this is something that is kept safe. So it is done legally very much, but still there is, first of all, there is a threat that people may disclose it. That's one thing. And second thing is, let's suppose on a similar product, and they come upon the same invention, stop you from exercising your own invention just because they filed a patent, whereas you kept it as a trade secret. So there are pros and cons of trade secrets. So these are some things. Coca-Cola, I would give you a classical example. Coca-Cola composition is a trade secret, and the company has not disclosed it. And even when they give it for manufacturing, what they do is the composition is disclosed to the manufacturers in parts. So there is a certain part of the formulation that a certain manufacturer would be making, and another part would be made by some other manufacturers, and then finally it would be mixed together. So that's how they are trying to safeguard the trade secret. Now, last of all, we come to geographical indications. Just a minute. Yeah. So geographical indications, again, as the name suggests, stands for things, processes, or mostly products that are, that can be associated with a certain geographical area. So let's suppose a Darjeeling tea. So Darjeeling tea is something that is grown and developed in Darjeeling, it should have a certain standard. It should have a certain flavor to it. So that's what it means. So geographical indication is something that is mainly enjoyed by indigenous products or a lot of agricultural products or handicrafts also. So this also comes under intellectual property. So now let's move on to patents, which is our main focus area here. So what is a patent, and for what can a patent be granted or allowed? So first of all, patents are granted for inventions which can solve a certain problem. So what I'm trying to say is there has to be a problem, a technical problem, and the solution to that problem should come out in the patent. Only then that will be granted. Now, having said that, let me tell you, anybody can file a patent. Patent offices do not stop people from filing patents. So anything that comes to your mind, you can draft a document, a rough document by yourself and file a patent by paying the fees to the Indian Patent Office. Nobody would stop you. But when the patent is examined, there are certain criteria which the patent offices have set, through which they kind of, they will judge your invention, and they will give a decision where as to the patent should be allowed or not. So what are those criteria? The criteria are, first, should disclose something that's novel or new. Okay. The second is it should be industrially applicable. Now I'll try to explain all of these in brief. By novel, what I mean is, see, all inventions are actually incremental inventions. They are not breakthrough discoveries, right? So let's suppose you have a certain machine and you feel that there is a certain feature which could be improved, or you can add some more feature to make it even more efficient or comfortable, so that one feature that you add to the already existing machine is enough to make it novel. So the criteria of novelty is easy to be complied with. The next step is, or the next criteria is, inventive step or non-obviousness. Now this is the most tricky and the most challenging part for any patent to pass. Okay, what it means is that let's suppose I take an example of a chemical formulation of a cough syrup. Okay, so in a cough syrup there will be a certain active ingredient which helps in removing the mucus, or helps in uh, subsidizing the cough, and there will be certain other substances which are added to stabilize the formulation. Now these other substances that are added, they could be it could be some salts which could and there can be not just one but multiple salts which can take each other's place. So now these salts is something which is obvious to somebody who is in this particular area, working in the area of chemistry or pharmaceutical sciences. To that person, replacing one salt with the other is something that is obvious. So if you make such a change, that is not considered as inventive enough for you to be granted a patent. So basically what it means is there has to be some out of the box thinking, or something that is not very obvious or apparent to somebody who's working in a particular area. So that is inventive step or non-obviousness. And the third criteria is industrially applicable. It means that patents are granted only to things which can be scaled up and which have some industrial use. So, that's what it stands for. So let's suppose you would say, the recipes that we use in cooking, they can be different, but they will not be granted patent. But yes, methods of preservation, if I talk about, if there is certain food product that has been developed and you develop a unique way of preserving that food product, increasing that is novel and inventive, yes, you can get a patent on it. So to summarize, inventions could be related to a product, or they could be related to a process, or it could be related to the method of using a certain product in a certain way. So these are different ways in which patents, the inventions can be protected through patents. The term for patents is 20 years from the date of priority, which means date of first filing. Now here, let me just elaborate a little on the date of first filing also. Patents, because they are granted to a person who has filed the patent first, so it's very important to secure them as early as possible. I'll elaborate more on that as we go further in the presentation. So now let's just see that, let's suppose you have a certain idea and you feel it's novel and inventive. So what do you do? How do you go about it? How do you file a patent? So the first thing is, the question is my idea patentable? And now that I've told you, there are three criteria for patentability, that is novelty, inventiveness, and industrially applicable. So you need to do a patentability assessment. You can do it yourself, or you can have some professional do it for you. Now, what is done in a patentability assessment is, it's a worldwide search for patent as well as non-patent literature, wherein we will check for closest, disclosures. These disclosures could be patents, these could be research articles, they could be presentations, they could be press releases, they could be videos, anything. So anything that closely matches with your invention can hamper the patentability or the chances of your patent being granted. So it's important to do, and patents are granted on a the novelty and uniqueness are evaluated on a worldwide basis. That means even though I'm applying for a patent in India, it needs to be unique globally. It needs to be inventive globally. Nobody across the globe should have disclosed such a thing anywhere, in the public domain. So this patentability assessment is a very important exercise because it helps you gain some confidence. Secondly, let's suppose the patentability assessment gives a negative report and you find out that there are some 4 or 5 references or patents or research articles which are disclosing your invention maybe in parts, and everything put together makes your invention very novel. So now what can be done in such a case is, you can brainstorm and think that, okay, all these features have already been disclosed, but is there something more that I can add now that I know that these, so that is something that you can do after doing patentability assessment and still file for a patent. Okay. So a patentability assessment search, I would say, is very, very important and everybody should do it. And once, let's suppose, the patentability assessment report is positive, one can draft and file a patent application. Now let's move on to what are the main elements of when you draft a patent application. What are the main parts of an application? So they are the abstract. Now the abstract gives a very brief, summary or a description of what the invention is about, and it kind of helps the examiner place the patent in a certain field of technology. So the abstract should reflect that whether it's a mechanical engineering patent, or it's a chemistry patent, or it belongs to the life sciences domain. That should be very clearly written in the abstract, which is a very small part, maybe just a paragraph. Then there is this background of invention part. Now this background of invention part will talk about the problem that you're trying to solve, what people have done in the past to solve the problem, and we'll cite some examples for that. And so the background of invention is very important, because what you do there is, you first of all describe the problem, you describe how people have tried to solve this problem and cite them, and then you come to a conclusion that even though people have tried such and such solutions, there still is a certain problem which we are trying to solve, and the next part of the patent will talk about that. So you're basically trying to build up a story about your invention. So it's a very important part. Then we come to the description part, wherein you will describe your invention in detail. This could include your data. There could be some figures, not the figures, figures will come in the drawings part, but there could be some data, you've done some experimentation, everything could come together in the descriptions part. The next is the claims part. Now, the claims is the most important part and the heart and soul of a patent application, I would say. And these claims are not simple sentences in English language. They are written in a very techno legal language, I would say. And each patent office very clearly defines in what way it wants the claims to be. And these claims will decide the boundary of your, invention or your protection. So that is very important. And then there is a summary of invention and drawings. For everything, there is a certain format that has been specified by the Indian Patent Office, which needs to be adhered to. Now, we have seen through our experience that people, to save money or because they are into the research background and they have been, writing research papers, they feel confident enough to write a patent application and they file it. And at the time of filing, there is no check done on the format or how it should be. But I would suggest that a patent application is a very, very technical and a techno-legal document rather. So it should be done by a person who understands law very well. The technology, of course, needs to be understood, but more than the technology, the patent law needs to be understood very well so that the person knows what the examiner is looking for in the application. This would go a long way during the prosecution and grant of the patent application. So this is about what goes into a patent application draft. Okay. Any questions so far?
Actually, ma'am, we'll have a interaction session after your talk. Also, I request you that you check on
Okay.
your slide, ma'am, because the slides are not changing so far.
Not changing.
Yeah, we are still on the patent page.
It's changing on my screen. Let me check what's I maybe internet problem or what is it because it's changing. Which slide are you seeing now? Main elements of a patent application.
No, it's on patent, the with the blue heading.
Ninth slide.
It's changing on my screen surprisingly. So
Ma'am, I think it
yeah,
will
is it
be.
changing? I'm changing.
No, ma'am, it's still the same. I think if you just try to turn off the cam for a minute, I think it may.
I'll stop sharing. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. I'll do that.
Yeah, ma'am.
That. So let me go back to the slideshow now.
Ma'am, the slide just changed. It's now at 11th,
It has changed.
14th. Yeah, now it's changing. It's now at
Can you
14th.
see the? It's changed. Okay. Great. So we discussed when and how to file a patent. Can you see that slide?
Now it's
Hello.
showing the cost for patent filing in India.
Oh my God, where has it gone? I'm so sorry. Just a minute. It's not. I don't know what's happening.
मैम अगर कैमरा बंद करेगा तो चलेगा.
Okay. Let me do that. I'll do that. I'll switch off the camera then. Yeah, I've switched off the camera now. So let's see if this works better now. So can you see the main elements of a patent application slide now?
Now it's at patent system
Hello?
in India.
Uh, 1 second. Please hold on. I'll just stop sharing and start it again. I think there's some problem.
Hello, excuse me, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yeah, yeah.
I guess you are sharing multiple screens. There is a possibility that you are not sharing the preview screen. So if you are using,
1 second, 1 second.
yeah,
यार स्क्रीन नहीं दिख रहा है प्रॉपर्ली, क्या हो रहा है ये?
You are not presenting. You want to share now?
तो स्टॉप शेयरिंग किया था मैंने.
You want to share again?
Yes, yes.
No.
Yeah, is it visible now? Will you see?
no, not yet, ma'am.
Not yet.
Right.
Let me know if it's visible.
It's loading.
You can't do?
Not required. Not required. Can you see now? Internet connection slow, I think. Hello.
Yes, ma'am. It's now presenting.
Which slide can you see?
Pattern systems, the yellow one.
Types of patent applications. Can you see that slide?
Yeah, I can. We can.
Yes, ma'am.
Please continue.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Great. So having talked about what a patent application, the draft includes, let's talk about the different types of patent applications that one can file. So the two major types are what is called as a provisional application and a complete application. Now it's very important to understand the difference between these two. Let's suppose you started working on a project and the project is turning out well and you feel that you have hit upon something that could be protected through a patent, and that's an invention, but you still need more time to complete it and give it its final shape, right? So in that case, since patents are sensitive to the time of filing, that is, if you file the person who files earlier enjoys the rights of the patent. So there is an option of filing something called as a provisional patent, or you can also call it as a temporary patent. Now what this patent will do is it will secure the date of your filing from which the term of protection of your patent will start. Okay. Now since you have not completed your invention, you are not expected to give out all details of your invention in the provisional detail. So this can be a brief write-up about what the invention is, and so it will be a broad kind of a write-up which should encompass or include what you are going to later on file. So a provisional patent will basically just secure a date for you, and the timeline that you get to file a complete patent with all the disclosure and the details is 1 year. So let's suppose you file a patent on 1st February 2021, a provisional patent. So you have time until 1st February 2022 to file the complete patent. So at the time of filing complete patent, it's important to include all the details of the invention and the claims, and then it becomes a frozen document. You cannot change it further. Okay. So, but in this 1 year window period, you can work on your invention and be assured that yes, I have secured a date for my patent, which is 1 year earlier, and then you can within a year you can file the complete patent. So that's what a provisional and a complete patent does. And many startups we have seen that they because they are working on a very fast emerging area, let's suppose drones, in which many companies are working and their demand is increasing and there's a lot of research work going on. So if they wait for the time to complete their invention, it is possible that somebody else also comes up with a similar solution and files a patent. And if that person does that, then they will not be able to exercise something that they were doing. So in order to avoid that situation, what they do is they file provisional patent applications. The fees that you need to pay to the patent office will be only once. It's not that you'll have to pay twice, once at the time of provisional filing and then at the time of complete filing. No, only once you have to pay. And then at the time of filing complete patent application, you can just simply file the completed document with all the figures, drawings, and the claims in place. So that's what provisional and complete patent stands for. Next is a convention patent. Now this convention patent is makes sense when let's suppose somebody's filed a patent in USA, and after that they want to file the same patent taking priority from the US patent in India. So that's what typically a convention patent means. We'll discuss that more when we discuss foreign filings. Next is PCT. The full form of PCT is Patent Cooperation Treaty. This was a treaty that was signed and there are some 128 member countries under this. What this PCT system does is, it buys you a little additional time to decide if you want to file your patent application outside India. So basically a PCT should be filed by anyone who has some business interests outside India, but he is not very sure which countries he will have his business in, and so he wants a broad kind of a protection in terms of some time also, and maybe I can say a choice from several countries to decide which countries he would want to file in, let's suppose 2 years down the line. So that's what a PCT is. We'll come to the timelines of the PCT filing in the next slide. Next is patent of addition. Now a patent of addition is something that let's suppose you've already filed a patent on a certain product and you have still been working on the product and you've added some more features to it. Okay, so now these additional features by themselves may not qualify for a full patent. Reason being, they are a subset of your earlier patent. So what do you do now? You have made some substantial changes which are also inventive in nature, so you file a patent of addition. Okay, so that's what a patent of addition means. And the last is a divisional patent. So divisional patent is something that is filed when you have more than one inventive concept in a particular process or a product. So there could be two patents, let's suppose, which could be filed in a similar area on the same product. What you file is a divisional patent. So that's what these terms mean broadly. So now, can you see the next slide, patent system in India?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, great. So now let's briefly and quickly see how patent system in India works. So let's suppose you did a patentability assessment, the report was positive, so you went ahead, you drafted the application and you filed the application. Now what happens after you file the application? Now normally after you file the application, it will get published in through the Indian Patent Office on its website after 18 months of your filing. Okay, so that's the minimum time that they will take, not before. even not even 17 months, they will file it, publish it only after 18 months. Okay, and after it is published and it comes into public domain, then only it can go into examination. Okay, now any patent application that is filed does not go into examination directly. One needs to file something called as request for examination and needs to pay the examination fees to the Indian Patent Office. Now this is a system that's followed by Patent Office globally to just to segregate serious and non-serious filers, because there are maybe in some other talk we can discuss about what are the various reasons for which people file patents. It's not just because they have an invention which they want to protect or they want to stop others from copying. There could be several other reasons for which people file patents. So just to segregate people, the serious filers from the non-serious filers, there is this process or formality called as request for examination, and you need to pay the examination fees. Now, once you do that, you file request for examination, your patent application enters into a queue for examination, which is based on the date of filing of request for examination. So whenever your turn comes, the examiners will do a thorough search. They will again do a global search, and they will from their decision they will come up with certain prior arts or patents which they feel are similar to your invention, and they will prepare something called as a first examination report, and this will be sent to you or to the patent agent through which you have filed the patent. Now once that is sent, this needs to be analyzed, and this needs to be replied to. The time period given for filing a response to a first examination report is 6 months from the date of issuance. So within 6 months you have to file a response. Once the response is filed, the examiners will again go through the clarifications that you have given, and if they are satisfied, they may issue a notice of grant. If they're not satisfied, they may sometimes issue one more examination report, or sometimes they may call for a hearing. So basically, so this kind of the prosecution involves to and fro in between the examiner and the applicant, and finally the decision on the patent is taken, which could be either to deny the patent or grant the patent. Now this last I would say that 5 years before from today, this procedure was the Indian Patent Office specifically was very, very slow in this, and patents were taking something like 7 to 8 years to be granted. Now imagine the term of a patent is 20 years from date of first filing. So your 8 years have gone just in prosecution. So what you have left, you are left with is only 12 years. Okay, so this was very discouraging, and so the Indian Patent Office and the Indian government has tried to work on this, and they have come up with several schemes, and they have also increased their the number of people working with them to fast track this as much as possible. And there are two other additional benefits that have been provided to certain people, which is early publication. First of all, that means you can, I told you that the time period for the patent to be published is 18 months from filing and not before that. But by paying some extra fees, one can apply for early publication, and so it can get published early. So you can announce to the world once you have, once the application is seen on the Indian Patent Office website, it definitely adds to the credibility of the inventor or the applicant. So that's one thing. And second is something called as expedited or fast track examination. So the examination, which typically now takes, I would say, 3 to 4 years, can be fast tracked further. Now this is something which cannot be, this facility cannot be availed by everyone. We will discuss who can take benefit of this expedited examination scheme in the next slide. So now let's move on to, let's discuss the costs in brief, because it's important when we are talking about patents, we should also know what is the cost involved in it. So now Indian Patent Office classifies the applicants, that is the owners of the patents, into 3 categories. The first category is a natural person. By natural person they mean an individual, and at the same level they have kept startups, and now very recently they have also included micro, small and medium industries in the same category. So that's category 1. Okay, this category enjoys the benefit of the lowest official fees payable. The second is small entity, and the third is the larger companies, which comes under the group called as others. So these are the three categories in which applicants can be there. And the official fees that is payable to the Indian Patent Office is 1600 for a startup or a natural person at the time of filing, 4000 for a small entity, and 8000 for big companies. The next fee is payable. There are only two stages in which one needs to pay fees to the Indian Patent Office. One is at the time of filing, and one is for request for examination. Now, for request for examination, the fees is 4000, 8000, and 20,000 for these three types of applicants. And lastly, if you want to expedite the examination, which is enjoyed by startups or women applicants, the fees increases from 4000 to 10,500. So, having done that, let's suppose you apply for expedited examination. You can expect a grant in much lesser time, as less time as I would say, 6 to 8 months as compared to the 4 years time. So that is the kind of benefit that one can enjoy by applying for expedited examination. So now, having discussed the Indian patent filing and the Indian patent system, let's briefly touch upon foreign filings. So what if a company, a startup or an individual has business plans outside India, and that is, I would say that is one major reason why one should file in countries outside India, because it's very expensive. So there are two routes available. One is called as the Paris Convention route, and the other is called as the PCT route. Now, the Paris Convention route means that from within 1 year of filing in the parent country, one has to file in other countries to get patents. Okay, so you get a very small time period of 12 months from the date of your first filing to decide which countries you want to file in, and you need to bear the cost for filing in all these countries, whichever countries you choose at the same time, that is before the expiration of the 12 months time. So that's the Paris Convention route. So let's suppose there is some startup or some company or individual who is very sure that I want to file my patent only in the US, or I want to file it only in US and China. If you are very sure about this, then yes, this route is good, because you can directly file in these two countries after 12 months and you're done. And then these patents will be prosecuted very similar to how they have been prosecuted in India. There will be a examination, there will be a examination report which needs to be replied to, and then finally you will get a grant. So then the procedure remains the same in the countries wherever you file. So that's one route, wherein the time period that you get is 12 months from the date of first filing. Now, having said that, this 12 months period is very short a time, both in terms of bearing the costs and in terms of deciding as to which countries one could be interested in. So what people do is they file something called as a PCT international application. Now, when I say international application, it does not give you rights in any country. It just buys you more time. How much time more it buys you is, it buys you a total of 30 months time from the date of first filing. So you get a 30-month window to decide what countries you want to file in, and then you can file in those countries before the expiration of 30 months. Now, the international body where you file the PCT also does a little more work. It doesn't just docket your application, but what it does is it does a search on its own. And for this, of course, you need to pay a fees at the time of PCT filing, and it issues something called as the International Search Report and Written Opinion. And this is somewhere around 16 months from the filing, from the date of priority, or within 6 months from your date of filing PCT. Now, this International Search Report and Written Opinion is something that is looked upon and valued by all patent offices globally. So whenever examination starts, let's suppose in the US or China or Europe, wherever you have filed, they will definitely look at what PCT or the parent body, WIPO, has issued. Okay, and this will be taken into consideration for the prosecution. So basically PCT, I would like to say, doesn't give you rights anywhere. You still need to file in countries of your choice. It only buys you additional time, and then that time period is 30 months from your date of priority. Okay, but there is an additional fees that you need to pay at the time of PCT filing. So one needs to very judiciously decide whether one may whether one is sure of what countries he wants to file in, or he will take time in filing. So if you are not very sure, but yes, there is some possibility that you may file outside India in certain countries, it's better to file a PCT. So that's about PCT and foreign filings in brief. So now let's move on to Startup India scheme and how to take benefits from that and what are the benefits of Startup India scheme. So first of all, let's discuss what a startup means or how a startup has been defined by Government of India. So the first criteria is the company should be incorporated less than 10 years before. So it should be a new company. Okay, so if you've just incorporated or it's been 2 or 3 years, yes, you can apply for a startup certificate. Second criteria is the annual turnover of the company should be less than 10 crores. The third criteria is the company should be an original entity. Now, what I mean by this is it should not be a spin-off or a subsidiary of a larger company. That cannot be considered as a startup. So let's suppose 2 or 3 students, engineering students, they come together, they have worked on a certain project and they want to now file a patent and form a company. Yes, they can do that and they can register themselves as a startup and they can start. So that is possible. If you file patents in the name of the college or the university, that doesn't classify as a startup. So startup will basically be individuals who are working, and since it's individuals, a lot of benefit, financial as well as other benefits are given to the startups. And the last criteria is the area of work has to be innovative and scalable. So there are startups of various, there are e-commerce startups also, but e-commerce startups will not enjoy the benefits that are enjoyed by startups which are from the technology domain. So basically the startups that are doing some innovative work which has industrial applicability and are scalable, they enjoy the benefits of the startup scheme. Now, in order to apply for a startup certificate, one needs to go to the Startup India website. There's a registration form that you can fill in, give the details, and it's a very simple procedure. Within, I think, 2 or 3 days or maximum 1 week, you can get your startup certificate. So it's pretty simple. Now, let's move on to the benefits of a startup. So one benefit is that the startups get a tax exemption, okay, and first 3 years of their incorporation, actually they don't have to pay any tax at all. So that's a major benefit that startups enjoy. And so these first 3 years, whatever income or earnings they have, they can spend on their R&D or they can grow. And once they start having some returns, then that is the time they need to pay taxes. Second is 80% rebate is given in the official fees, and they enjoy the advantage of having a fast track examination. So this 80% rebate is 1600 versus 8000 that we saw in the previous slides. So 1600 is a filing fees for a startup, whereas a company, a public limited company, needs to pay 8000. So that's the 80% rebate or concession that we are talking about here. Okay. Next is Startup India program has set up several incubation centers, and wherein they provide mentorship, they handhold, they will explain, they will have regular sessions for the startups wherein they will explain everything right from patenting. They will provide, they have their own IP cell which provides support in terms of patentability searches or drafting and filing. So that kind of mentorship is provided. They connect them with the investors because after all it's a business. So the startup will not stop at just filing the patent. The startup needs to find investors and manufacture the products and have a market for them. So they help them connect with investors and also with other startups. So we are seeing a lot of startups having cross licensing amongst each other. So one startup, so if they are working in a similar area or in an area which can, both of them, they can mutually benefit. So that's something that the Startup India scheme and the incubation centers associated with them help the startups with. Then next is the government and PSU tenders, in which there's a lot of formality requirement. Otherwise, in them, startups can directly participate. So, and for this, whatever information is required, the Startup India program, under the Startup India program, they have their own cell, which is very, very helpful and easy to reach, and they are more than happy to, kind of help the startups in that. Last is something that no startup would want, but yes, if the startup wants to close, then the winding up or the closure process is also easier with lesser formalities. So this kind of a benefit is also given to a startup. So that's all. I would just like to now share few startups that we at Omira work with. So Gen Robotic Innovations, this is a very famous, this company was very, very famous for developing this robotic, cleaner, sewage cleaner. So this, I'm sure many of you would be knowing about it. Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi, he himself awarded this particular company because there was this practice of manual scavengers. So that has been replaced by robots built by Gen Robotic Innovations, and we are very proud that we are handling their patent portfolio, and we have been working with them. So similarly, we have several startups from IIT Chennai that with whom we are working, and in fact, they are on a retainership with us, which means that we are kind of playing a major role in their R&D process. We are having regular discussions with their R&D teams who brainstorm and come up with ideas, and we help them, refine those ideas and decide which ones should go for patents and something of that sort. So basically these are few startups, and this slide talks slightly about Omira IP. So we being an international firm, we file like more than 5,000 patents and almost 3,000 trademarks globally. We started out in Malaysia, so we are the largest patent filers in Malaysia, and we were also awarded the Best Patent Agent award in Malaysia. Our offices in India are in Delhi, Mumbai, and Hyderabad currently. And apart from India, we also have offices in Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia. The services covered include all that we spoke about, and also there is a very important and interesting area of this called as IP analytics. IP analytics includes a lot of intelligent services like IP landscapes. There's something called as white space analysis, which means that companies want to look for areas in which there are no patents and which are free for them to work on. And companies sometimes also want the knowledge base that is available in the expired or abandoned patents to work on. So that is something that IP analytics does. We also do IP commercialization and valuation, which means that we help companies connect with each other, get into licensing deals, cross licensing, and benefit from that. Patents can be sold, patents can be licensed, and they can actually, so they are assets in the real sense. So that's what IP commercialization covers. I am from biotech background, so similarly we have people from microbiology, biotechnology background. We have a very strong electrical, chemical, and mechanical team, and this is relevant to your college also, because we are on a regular basis we take interns from engineering colleges who are keen in IP. So we train them in IP, and we want them to use the engineering knowledge and get some hands-on experience in, let's suppose, patent searches or patent draftings, etc. So we are open to that. And few clients, as you can see, are IIT Delhi, Manipal University. We work with Triple IT Delhi also, and several startups. And we are mentors for several incubation centers also. So that's all. Thank you very much for the patient hearing, and there were some glitches also. So now we can have the question and answer round.
Ma'am, before starting, isn't Gen Robotics the one from Kerala?
Yes, you're right.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Whoa, that was a wonderful session. Thank you, ma'am, for sharing so much with us. Moving on. Now it's your time, folks. Let not this window of opportunity miss you. You can give feedbacks, share some thoughts, and even clarify your doubts.
Hello, ma'am. Ma'am,
Yeah.
I have got some doubts regarding the patents and trademarks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, please.
so first one is that is there a like when somebody is applying for a patent, I think there's during the publication period, if we have some ideas
Mm-hmm.
and we are already developing it, will we be able to
Mm-hmm.
like cancel the request by interfering with the proper proofs?
Um, could you please elaborate? I'm unable to understand your question. You are saying that
Uh,
you have already filed a patent and then you want to cancel it. Is that correct?
no, ma'am. Like अगर like what to say, yeah, अगर मेरा एक opposition company patent file the patent, and actually I have
Mm-hmm.
been
Okay.
developing it secretly for like long years, and I have proper proofs that I have been
Mm-hmm.
developing it. So will I be able to like
Mm-hmm.
interfere the process, their application process?
No,
So once it's
no. The reason being
patented.
they have filed a patent. The reason being they have filed a patent and you haven't. So that's exactly what trade secret we discussed is. So you have kept it as a trade secret, whereas they have disclosed and filed a patent. So anybody who will file a patent should be able to do that. So let's change the scenario slightly. You have also filed a patent and they have also filed a patent. So in that case, the priority date will decide who will, get the patent. And secondly, there could be certain differences between the patents filed by the two parties also. So in that case, yes, you can stop the other party, but not if you have not filed a patent.
Okay,
Without
so
filing a patent, you cannot stop.
what if we do it at like the same day?
Yeah,
Because
same
like,
day if you do it, then
yeah, yeah, go on, ma'am.
yeah. So same day if you do, yes, then in that case, see it again. It will depend upon what has been disclosed, how close the patents are, and then in that case, let's suppose they are exactly similar, which is a very hypothetical situation. But still, if I say that the claims and everything that has been they are trying to protect is same, in that case, the patent office may go back and check your records to actually find out who was working on it earlier than the other party. So that's
Ma'am,
how it is dealt with.
and this has already happened in like 2019. Like Qualcomm and Apple
Okay.
was designing a modem for 5G, and both
Yeah.
applied for a patent at the same date. So that is it is said that like
Okay.
that's why
Mm-hmm.
Apple had been sued by Qualcomm for it and something like that. That's why I got this doubt and asked
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yes.
And
Yes. Yes. And see, that's why, patent applications. Yeah.
yeah, ma'am, carry on.
Patent applications, I would like to add here is that's why the art of drafting a good patent application is something that's very important. It's like having a good lawyer. If you have a good lawyer, the chances of you winning the case, even if you don't have enough substantial matter, are still higher because the lawyer is good and can present good arguments. So similarly, if the patent application is drafted skillfully, then that really helps the patent application getting granted, or getting you can avoid the infringement suits and getting into such legal hassles also.
Okay, ma'am. Actually, one more thing about
Yeah.
like the payment.
Yeah.
I had once read that there is like some subsidies for the students if they are like um, filing the patent during their college times.
See, students would be considered same as your independent inventor, that's natural person or startup. One more benefit that I did not discuss about is there is a something called as a startup facilitator scheme. What it is the Indian Patent Office has asked the Indian patent agents to register or with them, and Indian Patent Office will pay to these patent agents on behalf of the students or on behalf of the startups for patent drafting and filing. Okay, so if you go for that kind of a support, yes, you will not have to pay. The Indian Patent Office will pay, but the con of this is that the since the Indian Patent Office pays very less, they pay 10,000 rupees for the entire procedure from the patentability to the patent drafting to the filing until grant. So that's like really not justifiable to the amount of effort that a patent agent puts in. So as a consequence of that, freelancers or people who do not have much experience but are registered patent agents, they have mostly opted for such a scheme. So the quality of drafting is questionable once you take such a route, the IP facilitator route, and you take advantage. So definitely you will save money, but then whether the patent will be granted or it will protect your invention completely is something that needs to be that's a little questionable. So that's the con of it. But yes, there is a IP facilitator scheme wherein you don't have to pay anything. The Indian Patent Office will bear the cost for drafting and filing of your patent.
Ma'am, one more thing. Many of
Yeah.
us here is like from computer science department. So I
Mm-hmm.
think many of us will be thinking of starting a company as a software or IT department. So is
Yeah.
there like patents for mobile applications?
Yes, there are. Yes,
So
definitely there are.
so like how feasible is the procedures like same as it is like a digital era and the department is
It's
like
the same.
so no
It's the
other
same.
complication.
Only thing is the drafting needs to be done very skillfully because the general belief is that software patents are not allowed, but no, it's not that. If you try to protect only the code part of it, it may not be allowed, but the software along with the hardware and it's the way you present the invention in total, so it can be very much protected, patentable. Nobody, as I mentioned at the beginning of the talk, nobody stops anyone from filing a patent. But it's not about just filing a patent. You want it to be granted, and that's the reason you are, taking this entire exercise of, drafting and filing and paying examination fees and going through the prosecution. So, keeping the ultimate aim, that is grant of patent in mind, the patent needs to be drafted very well, and the hardware and the software part needs to be integrated together and presented as per the norms of the Indian patent law, and then yes, it is definitely patentable. The procedure, the prosecution procedure remains the same.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, it's
Yeah.
not actually a doubt, just an opinion. Recently, we have been
Yeah.
seeing many news about a shopping site who had to like change their logo due to some legal issues. Because actually,
Mm-hmm.
as your point of view, is it actually necessary? Because companies are paying billions of dollars just to make a logo, and by just even
Mm-hmm.
without some base, just saying claiming that it is an assault for some people, and even so,
Are
is it
you talking
actually?
about the Mintra?
Yeah,
Are you
actually,
talking about the
behind
Mintra logo?
Mintra, many are coming now as like troll
Right,
memes.
right, right.
So actually, do you think that it is actually
Mm-hmm.
necessary? Because even many companies, including as even mobile companies having issues like if what if some people came saying that it's an assault? So it's actually they are paying like billions of dollars just for a logo, and if by
Yeah.
a simple claim it's actually a huge loss for the company if they have to change their logo.
Right.
And even the production, if something is being productive, I mean in production state, they have to stop
Mm-hmm.
it and redesign it just to take away the logo.
Yes, but this is an open system, so both patents and trademarks, they are open to the public, and anybody has, being a democratic country, anybody has a right to object to anything. So, people come up with different grounds. Sometimes they come up with ethical and moral grounds. So, big companies need to work on protect their reputation also. So, yes, it's a big loss to them. And many times they reach a conclusion also. There is a kind of a negotiation that they work out with the person who's objecting. And the lawyers have a big role to play here again, you know. So, but yes, having all your formalities in place does help a long way. So, so you should, if you have enough evidence, you can prove. Even in the case of Myntra, they could prove. I've not gone into the details of that case, but yes, I'm aware of it. So, having all the formalities done properly and having a good lawyer who can present good objections, there is a chance. But again, there's a lot of cost and time involved for both the parties. So, any other company would try to defame a big company, just to hamper
Uh,
their sales normal in the corporate world. So such things do happen.
ma'am,
Okay.
ma'am, there's another. Nafi, can you please excuse me?
Yeah, sure.
Ma'am, can you please comment regarding the collaboration with the institution as an applicant, like our college, for in
Okay. Mm-hmm.
filing a patent? I am asking you regarding collaborating with
Mm-hmm.
the institution. Can you please comment regarding the
Okay.
advantages and disadvantages?
So collaboration with the purpose of what? What is the purpose of this collaboration? Please elaborate on that.
They are actually helping us in taking a patent.
In filing a patent.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you are asking me that is a collaboration possible between our firm and your institution for patent filings? Is that the question?
No, myself
Or
and
there
my
is already another firm? Okay.
as a student, I am
So you
in the
want to, so you,
college. I want to collaborate with my college as an applicant.
okay. You want to collaborate with your college as an applicant. See, what happens is when you are a student in a particular organization or an employee in a certain organization and using the facilities of the organization, if you develop or certain invention, your name or you are entitled to inventorship, but not to the rights of the patent. The right of the patent remains with the applicant. So, in most cases, the the institution is the applicant and the students and the faculty are inventors. But yes, there is always a talk or a discussion possible with the management. If you have played a substantial role in developing that particular invention and you want ownership of that, then yes, but both the parties need to mutually agree to it. Generally, it's a norm that, even organizations, they have their own IP policies where it's very clear that the employees, the people who are actually working and developing the invention, even though they have developed it, they cannot be, the owners or the applicants. They will just be inventors. Yes, they have right to inventorship, so their name will go as inventors. But whether they will be included as applicants or not, that's up to the management to decide. So that is something that can come through mutual consent and discussions, but it's not something that's mandatory.
Fine, ma'am. Thank you. And one more question. You said regarding the priority.
Yeah.
Can I
Yeah.
change my specification of my product after
Yes.
filing to get priority over the other product? Can I change my specifications?
I didn't. You want to change, so you're saying that you want to change what has been disclosed in the
Yeah.
patent
Can I change?
because
Edit the file? Can I edit after filing?
is that
To
can't
get
do that.
the
No. So that's why. So see, if you have filed a provisional application, then yes, to a certain extent, because you've just given a manuscript of a thing, so you can add to it. So in that case, yes, you can change it. But and in that case, also it has to be within the scope of what has been disclosed in the provisional application. It's not like it cannot be like that. Okay, for the same patent application. That's one thing. So
can I say
filing
multiple
a
patents for a
provisional and then
can I,
multiple patents for us for the same product you're saying?
yeah, can I do that?
Yes, multiple patents. Yes, that is possible. Only thing is they should not be overlapping. So they should cover different aspects of the same product, and if they are mutually non-overlap, example of a let's suppose formulation or let's suppose a medicinal formulation. So the active ingredient or the medicine that has gone into it and its salts, they are patentable. The formulation or the final form of that drug that is which let's suppose gives a better absorption profile to the patient, or serves a different purpose, that is also patentable. So this is an example of two patents filed for the same product, but they're actually covering non-overlapping things. So if there is an overlap, then your own patent may be cited as a prior art to your next patent. Okay. So
Thank you.
what's the question? The question is yeah.
Hello, ma'am. One last thing. Sorry
Yeah.
for asking again and again. So I
Yeah.
had many doubts regarding patents.
No
That's
problem. No
why.
problem. Please go ahead.
So you
Yeah.
said that
Please tell
a
me.
company a startup who is started from a branch of a big company is not possible. Yes.
Yes.
So what if it's the other way around? I mean, first it started as a startup, and when an MNC saw the potential in it and they bought it, so will the patent transferred to the? I mean, like, will the company be able to buy the patent also?
Yes. That's called as an assignment in the legal language. Then that can be done. The ownership of a patent can always be transferred from one person to the other. So there's a formality for that, and there is a certain fee that one needs to pay to the patent office for that. But yes, that is possible.
But after that, there will be no traces like it's his or an individual product, right? It will be completely changed.
Yes. See, the records, the Indian Patent Office records will have a mention that initially it was this invention belonged to such and such person, and later on an assignment has been done. So a record will be there, but yes, the rights would be transferred.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.
There's one question in the chat also. It's from Akmal
Yeah,
Davis,
I'm
and
just
he's
reading that.
asking, yeah, is it possible to market
Is
non-patented
it possible
articles
to
to
market?
corporate or directly to the consumer?
Yes, of course. If there is no patented no patent on a certain product, then one is free to market it, manufacture it, sell it. It's only when a certain product or a process is patented that one needs to ensure that the rights of the patent bearer or the applicant are not infringed upon. So if there is no patent, then there is no compulsion as such. This is something that typically comes under a terminology which we call as freedom to operate in the IP language, which means that let's suppose a company came up with, let's suppose a startup is manufacturing, okay, and they want to, now they have their prototype ready and they want to manufacture and sell it in India. So what they need to see is they need to ensure that whatever configuration they have, there is no patent, live patent uh, filed in India which discloses the same configuration. Because if there is a live patent in India, by live patent I mean a patent for which the renewal fees is being paid. There are many patents for which are filed and granted, but the applicant stops paying renewal fees. Once the applicant stops paying renewal fees, the patent gets abandoned or expires. Okay, and when that happens, then the general public is free to use the invention. It's as good as the term is over for that. So you have to check that there is no live patent in the area where you want to manufacture and sell the product. So that is what is for relevant for patented articles. But yes, for non-patent articles, there is no such compulsion. They can be sold and manufactured anywhere. Okay, so the next question is, at the extreme, if anything unfortunate happens, who will be responsible? What do you mean by unfortunate here, Agnel?
Ma'am, I think he is referring to death.
So, I still didn't understand what is his question.
Ma'am, I think he's asking if the applicant died or passed away. So who will be the who will inherit the rights?
Who will inherit the rights? Okay, so you mean to say if he is a sole applicant, right? He is the only applicant, because if there are co-applicants. Now, first of all, let me also clarify this, that there can be multiple applicants and there can be multiple inventors. There is no limit to the number of people. You can also have an organization and an individual together being the applicant. So, the question as to, whether a student of a university and the university both can be applicants, yes. If the university gives the consent, both of them can be applicants. So, I have not come across a case similar to this but yes, I'm sure there would be some, such clause in the Indian Patent Act as to to whom the ownership will go in such a case. But I have not come across that.
Ma'am, I think we have
Any more
come
questions?
to the ending time now. I think all the other queries can be filled in through
Okay.
the mail. So if it's possible, if you can give us
Yeah,
your
sure.
your contacts or anything like by which we can contact you for other queries and
Yeah,
such.
sure. So I'll just
You can-
type in the chat window.
Yeah, sure.
I'll just type in the chat window.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah.
So this is my email ID. Okay. And Mr. Ajish has my mobile number also. So if somebody has, some specific requirements, I'll be happy to help. So we can connect through that channel also.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so let's conclude. I hope you all benefited from that. I'm sorry for the glitches that happened in between, but I hope I was able to pass on some knowledge about IPR through this webinar.
How I wish the interaction went forever. But as all good things come to close, I invite Ms. Sinna Julson from IEEE Chair to express heartfelt gratitude on behalf of the IES, IEEE and IEDC team.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
Warm good evening to all. Hope all of you enjoyed today's session. It was really power-packed session by Pooja Raval ma'am. Now, let me enter into my duty that is assigned to me. First of all, I would like to thank today's resource person, Pujaraval ma'am, for her super session on intellectual property rights and IP management for startups. It's really a great and wonderful session, ma'am. And the best testimony is the appreciation we have received by participants. Still, people have energy to ask questions. It signifies the content you are delivered. It's really wonderful. And one more thing that I observed is that the way you are delivering the things. Subject is complex. With examples and all that, you made it very familiar. So therefore, we are highly thankful and once again, I thank you, ma'am. Next, I would show my gratitude towards our beloved principal, Dr. S. Billy Sangeeta ma'am, on the behalf of our IEEE and IEDC cell for inaugurating the session and also for spending her valuable time in her busy schedule. Once again, thank you ma'am for supporting us to organize this webinar. Then my sincere thanks goes to IEDC and IEEE team coordinators Ajit sir, John sir and Prabhavati Miss for monitoring and guiding this webinar. And I would like to thank all teaching and non-teaching staffs of our college who made this webinar a grand success. Finally, the wonderful participants and all executive members of IEEE and IEDC team, thank you so much for your cooperation. Thank you all.